Sorry, we had to take a quick break there. But yeah, we were talking about sugar and how the body prefers sugar as a quick energy source. That's why college students go crazy when it comes to exam time. They buy loads and loads of candy, sodas, and junk food.
Right. Yeah. The everyone in any movie about college, they're sitting there chowing down on pizza or Taco Bell or something. There's lots of sugar in that bread. There's sugar in the tomato sauce. There's sugar in the pepperoni that you get unless you buy a specific pepperoni. That blows my mind over the last few years, just realizing what all sugar is in. And it goes back to the processed foods versus whole foods. They've got corn syrup or dextrose or, something in just about everything you buy in a box or a container. So.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the main thing also when you're talking about how a lot of food is created, especially in our commercial world, it has to sell well at the end of the day. If it doesn't sell, then basically the companies don't generate money.
Right. And sugar is very addictive. So that's a good way to sell stuff is put sugar in it. Working as a grocer, I definitely see tons of snack cakes rolling out the door and bread and cereals and all that kind of stuff. Even more than I see meat and vegetables going out the door. So, yeah, we definitely, and all this kind of took off, what would you say, around the late early 1900s, kind of going into the modern era. I know I was probably late 60s, early 70s when the World Health Organization did the big studies and started making recommendations for what eventually led to the food pyramid and kind of what they recommend the standard American diet should be.
When it comes to the food pyramid, there really was no sound science when it came to that. I mean, even when it came to the recommendation of drinking 8 cups of water per day, there was no true scientific basis for it other than somebody thought it was a good idea and it sounded good. I mean, when it came to our generation was one of the primary ones that were experimented on. We're talking about from the 1980s onwards, where they were marketing sugary cereals to our generation in particular with mascots, colors, and all this commercials. So, and they also specifically had everything laid out. Like even when you go to the grocery store, certain foods are at certain eye levels for children to purposely make the child nag the parent to eventually give in and say, you know what, I can't deal with this anymore. Fine, I'll get it for you. Keep quiet. So,
right.
Yeah, our generation was one of the worst hit for that in particular.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody remembers Fruity Pebbles and Frosted Flakes commercials, and the tie-in to the different cartoons and things that kids would be watching, of course.
Oh, yeah, I hated a lot of the cereals, but I would buy it for the toy.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Little deviation here. My favorite cereal box toy in the world, and I wish they would go back to making them. Do you remember the little rubber octopus thingy? You could... it was just a little cheap, like dollar store type toy, and you could flip it inside out, and it would look like a squid, and then you could flip it the other way, and the tentacles would be spread out like an octopus.
What cereal did it come with?
I don't even remember. It kind of was a generic toy that came in all of them before they started tying into like other, properties and things that were popular.
I honestly don't remember that. Okay, I'm a grown man, and I was shopping with my wife, and I saw some X-Men and Spider-Man stuff, and I almost bought it myself, right? Even now. So they know how to get us, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, well, you see what shirt I'm wearing, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So, back on topic here. So, I went down the rabbit hole, just watched a ton of videos, because I wanted to know what it was before I started doing it. And I'm the kind of person, I'm a lifelong student, so I'm always going to do research. I'm always going to watch 1,000 videos on something. And I just, learning is fascinating to me, and I've always enjoyed it. Yeah. If I didn't end up with $1 million in student loans, I'd go to college forever. There they are.
That
looks a lot like them anyway.
Cereal of the 80s.
Yep. Those were the
Hey,
jam,
cool.
man. Anytime I got those, I was in hog heaven.
Nice. Oh, it came with Fruit Loop too. Okay.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense because I remember eating Fruit Loops at my grandparents' house.
Yeah.
We didn't have that at my house, but anytime I went to Mama and Papa Cherry's house, it was definitely Fruit Loops.
Yeah, because
So,
also Chef Boyardee was big on our generation.
oh yeah, I ate my weight in the raviolis, the spaghetti and meatballs, and the also another issue is like the dyes they put in foods. So hot dogs with red food coloring. That's the
Yeah.
kind that my grandparents bought. And so one time I went to stay with my grandparents, and like I was just wild. I was just bouncing all over the place. And my grandmother was like, I got that boy a Snickers bar and he lost his mind. And my mom was like, is that all he had? She said, well, he had a red icy too. And she was like, the red icy. So there's something in that red 40 that just like amps you up. Or at
Well,
least
that
it
and
does.
also honestly, it was a ton of sugar. So
Yeah,
that's another big.
yeah. But I've always reacted to red food coloring even more so than other sugary things that I did not have the same response to. Uh, but yeah, and what led me to the, and I just realized this, what led me to the ketogenic diet initially also was my mom developed celiac disease, or she may have had it, but just discovered that she had it about 10 or so years ago, I guess now. And so the way, just cutting out the bread and the grains and all that stuff, kind of, she was pretty much eating ketogenically anyway. If you don't go back and buy a bunch of gluten-free substitute products and stick them back in your diet, the cakes and the cookies and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and you just eliminate the grains altogether, eliminate the bread, you're pretty much eating much lower carb than you were initially. And she lost like 90 pounds over probably the course of a year. And so, yeah, it was wild. So I kind of put two and two together, watching her go through that. And another, being that runs in my family, and I don't know if it's hereditary or not, but seeing that it runs in my family, and also diabetes runs in my family. My dad's mother was diabetic, and then my dad is diabetic. So I was like, there's pretty good chance that I could end up with diabetes. So I want to do whatever I can to offset it before it happens. And one of the most, impactful ways we can do that is through our nutrition, I believe. And so just eliminating all the sugar, and it's really, you lose weight, but if you can circumvent disease through that process, because I know cancer cells feed on sugar. I'm sure you know that from your research. Is that correct?
Well, they have a varied metabolism. I've heard that. I wonder where people get that a lot. I hear it a lot, especially when I was doing active lectures before. Um, the cancer metabolism can be a little complex sometimes, but
Right.
sure, it can consume sugar up to a degree. Um, but I would caution always against reductionist logic like that, because it's a lot more complex than that. I mean, in general, sugar is a very toxic molecule. I mean, just there's no two ways about it. I mean, imagine how sticky it feels between your fingers. Imagine in your body. That's why your body
Right.
takes such an effort to convert it into fat very quickly when you're
Right.
not using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
also if you look at the incident
spurt,
rate, oh yeah.
yeah, if you're using that little spurts, your body can burn through it. But if you're just ingesting tons and tons and tons of it, it doesn't have anything else to do with it but to turn it into fat and just store it on your body.
Exactly. There was an older gentleman I was talking to a couple of months ago, and he was talking about how in his generation they did a lot more physical labor. And he said, in my generation, being us, we're eating like how they were eating, but we're not doing any of the physical work. So
Right.
he was out, hammering things and smashing things and building things. He said, "You guys sit at a computer all day and you're eating like you're running Ironman marathons or something like that." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah. So getting back a little bit towards kind of my journey in discovering carnivore. So I stumbled across Steak and Butter Gal, and then Kelly Hogan, and Dr. Ken Berry, and then Anthony Chafee. And I just began to watch their videos and just study this and kind of see where their journey had been, the ailments that they resolved and eradicated. And over and over and over again, they do a lot of interviews and little Zoom conferences like we're doing now with people who have been through it themselves. And just over and over and over again, it was, oh yeah, my blood pressure was out of control my whole life. And then 2 months on the carnivore diet, and I felt amazing. And then within a couple months, no more blood pressure medicine. I had cystic acne. It went away. I had, what spoke to me was people with like Hashimoto's and GERD issues, people with acid reflux, some of those things that I was experiencing, not extreme, but starting to see signs of some of that stuff. My mom was hypothyroid, so that's in my gene pool probably. And so, those were the things that caught my attention. And so I just wanted to, like I said, circumvent the possibility of developing some of those things if I could through my nutrition as well. The way I approach the carnivore diet is as an elimination diet, move everything out, and then I want to go back and start adding things back in and see what I have inflammatory responses to. So what they recommend most people that I've looked at is like a 90-day period. You go 90 days with just meat, water, butter, salt, just that's pretty much it. And then you add like shellfish in, see if you react. You add pork in, see if you react. You add, spinach in, see if you react. You add berries in, see if you, one at a time, not all together. And so, and then you give it like a month, or, some people have a reaction immediately if it's severe enough. If their body, can't handle it, if they're allergic to it or having a histamine response or whatever. So, they'll know pretty quickly. So then you get back off of that thing if you react to it for a good month or two, and then introduce something else. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I just kind of want to see what things make me feel bad. And I'm noticing dairy is causing my skin to break out. And it's also causing me congestion. So I'm definitely having some kind of response to it.
Do you take any antihistamines, or do you keep Benadryl handy?
So we do have Benadryl in the house, and I also, I was taking Zyrtec every day forever. And I cycled off of it onto Claritin for a while. And that's and this is something that blew me away. So every time I go to my mom's house, I've been carnivore now for about 8 or 9 weeks. I've lost only 14 or 15 pounds, I think. But my body recomposition is like nothing before. So on keto, I still had a pot belly. I still was about the same measurement around my belly button across the love handles. Didn't really change much. But I think 6 weeks in to carnivore, I was 45 inches at my waist down to 40 inches in 6 weeks. And that's the part of my body that has never budged, is my midsection. Like I said, my legs get skinny, my arms get skinny, my neck and everything, my face kind of thin out, but that stomach would always just hang on. And that is actually going away for the first time ever, in my adult life. Because even when I got down in weight on keto the first time and got down to like 187 pounds, my waist at the belly button was still not that drastically smaller than the rest of me got. But on carnivore, it is. So I'm wondering if part of that is dairy.
Well, also I was going to add, wondering this, when it comes to the body, it's very complex. There's numerous factors. Also, stress could be a factor as well. So you're talking about extreme, yeah, exactly. So if you're dealing with that for a prolonged period of time, I mean, for example, certain patients that are on corticosteroids for a long period of time, they can get like a moon face, and basically their extremities will be all skinny, but they're having a round, bigger body in the center. If you look from an evolutionary point of view, that these are your critical organs. So your body would store more fat here to save your life, while your arms legs will be skinny so you can run away from the danger. It's funny because the body can't tell the difference between a tiger and a bill.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And we've definitely had financial stressors in recent years. So that, I'm sure, is part of it. My work is a bit stressful just because some of my employees have not been dependable. So I've had to cover late shifts and then get 4 hours of sleep and go in and cover early shifts for people that didn't come to work. And there's a lot of pressure on us because we are excelling. We've gone from, when I went to the store, I think we were around like 88th out of 90 something stores. Like out of 90 stores, we were at 88th. And now, I think 3 weeks ago, we were number 2 in the entire division in all of our metrics. So my supervisor and I have been working so hard to just try to turn that thing around. And it has been very stressful. So I'm sure that cortisol is probably an issue for me at this point. But, and I, just knowing that, I've been trying to just, pray, meditate, just focus and say, this is what I can handle. Some of this is out of my control, and I'm just going to keep doing what I know is right and good. And I'm not going to stress about the results in terms of work. So, that's kind of been something lately I've had to do, is just like decide I'm not going to freak out when things go crazy. I'm just going to keep doing what I know is right, and it'll all pan out eventually.
I'm proud of you. That's important.
Thank you. So, where I'm at now, pretty much, so a typical day of eating for me. I wake up, I weight train for about 30 minutes to an hour with weights and resistance bands. And then I've got some dumbbells. I'll do overhead shoulder press. I'll do biceps curls. I'll do squats, like goblet squats with the dumbbells, and do dumbbell flies, triceps extensions. And then I'll get my bands and I'll do lat pulls for my back. And then I've got a pull-up bar, and I'll hook it in the door frame, wrap the bands around it, and then do my up to down lat pulls to kind of get all this over here.
I was smiling when you said the resistance band, because I hit myself in a no-go zone because I wasn't being careful. So every time someone says resistance band, I smile because of that. I wasn't careful, and it went right in the wrong spot. It was like,
yeah, I've had that experience before. It's not pleasant. Life lesson right there. So, and then I do push-ups for chest, because I noticed something's going on with my scapula. When I do, when I lay down on a bench and push weight, it tends to throw my scapula out of alignment. So, and it keeps happening. So I don't know if that's a connective tissue issue that I'm having or what's going on there. So I've just transitioned to doing push-ups now and just increase my volume. So I'll do about 100 to 150, 160 push-ups on my chest days right now. And that'll probably go up over time. But
so when you scapula push out of alignment, do you mind describing that a little bit more? That's okay.
Yeah, so I just get a lot of pain and it starts to pop, and like I can just tell it feels like it's out of whack. And I have in the past, I haven't been to a chiropractor in probably a year, but when I used to go, that was an issue that I experienced. He would often have to adjust my scapula. It would kind of wing out and rotate up, and he'd have to kick it back over. So I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, that one's kind of a mystery to me too, because there were periods of time where it didn't happen, but here recently it's been an issue again. So I don't know. Yeah. So all the
military
joint
presses?
pains. I'm sorry.
Do you incorporate military presses into your routine?
Military press, is that like an overhead shoulder press?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So
a little bit more functional.
I don't have a barbell. I have dumbbells, but I do those movements just with a dumbbell in each hand. Yeah. So I'm getting push moves, pull moves, arms flexion and extension, raising movements for the deltoids, and rear delt pulling movements, squats, of course, and then I'll do hip thrusts from the floor for my glutes and hamstrings, that posterior chain. And then calf raises here and there. And I do a lot of walking. I don't run anymore. I just walk. So I do sprints, but I don't do like long distance running, jogging, kind of moderate paced running because of my knee issues. But one thing I have noticed, and that's what I was getting to. Every time I would go to my mom's house, she has like 4 dogs. And so like the second they run up to me, I'm like, I'm sneezing. And like my eyes turn red and welts break out on my arms from them touching me, and like just awful. Well, ever since going carnivore, I had stopped taking my daily sinus medicine because I wasn't needing it. And so I went to my mom's the other day, and of course the dogs come running in, they're jumping all over me. I can see the hair like in the air in the afternoon sun, and they're like rubbing up against me and licking me and everything. And I don't sneeze. And I had heard one video I watched somewhere like a month or two ago. Yeah, I started carnivore and I got off all my sinus and allergy medication. And I was like, that's weird. And then I just kind of moved on. And then when that happened, I went, huh. So I had the same experience. And it may be the dairy again. I'm thinking possibly it's the dairy that I eliminated.
I mean, basically, there's a huge mystery to be solved here, but at the same time, you're feeling great. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's wild. Oh, you remember my injured hand from that was shattered? So that's as far as I've been able to close it for ever since it happened, about 10 years now. Watch this.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if the scar tissue is healing or what's happening, but that literally started within probably 3 weeks of going carnivore. So I don't know if the like eating connective tissue helps rebuild your own. I don't know how the body metabolizes that or how any of that works. I don't know. I'm just shooting in the dark here. Is what I'm eating helping, or is it the elimination of what's causing the inflammation going away and taking inflammation out of that area?
I don't know, but I remember many years ago, I did a lecture about our kale research, and then this lady came up to me and she said, "You are what you eat." So she said, "Are you a vegetable?" Oh, I just realized that she actually meant to insult me. Anyway, so I just
you just figured that out.
I just man, I
you were today years old when you discovered that.
Yeah, oh man, I just realized, man, and we recorded that.
That's fantastic. That's gonna make the highlight reel.
But yeah, I mean, there's an old adage: you are what you eat, I guess, right? Maybe there could be some truth to that.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, surely if we can eat protein to build muscle, possibly there's a correlation. You know, if we're eating some connective tissue in there with the ground beef, let's say, that could go to help restore damaged connective tissue. I don't know. You're still not over getting called a vegetable, are you?
Yeah, it hit me like a ton of bricks right now. I was like, oh damn, she insulted me, and I didn't realize it till now. Anyway,
Yeah. So just to recap, down I'm down 50 pounds now from when I very first ever started, my heaviest. Think 13 or 14, maybe 15 of that was carnivore. I have to go back and look at my notes. But, you know, in the teens in weight loss, but body recomposition totally different. And my abdominal wall is leaning out in ways that it didn't do before, even though I weighed less. So not losing weight as fast, but my body is recomping at an incredible rate. I haven't got brave enough to post pictures lately. I'm trying to get that 6-pack to pop in before I do another set of pictures. But
how about your strength levels?
Do what?
How about your strength levels?
They haven't really changed at this point. Well, I mean, maybe they have, because like I'm cranking out a lot more push-ups than I did initially. So when I first started, like it was a chore to get about 7 to 10 out. And now I'm doing like 20 rep sets. So where before I'd have to do 15 sets of 10 to get to 150, I can crank out just a couple 20 rep sets and then a little 10 rep set at the end to get to 150. So and that may just be my body adapting to the exercise. I don't know if there's a direct correlation to the nutrition, but it's probably both.
Yeah, I mean, even they have reported cases of prisoners and stuff where they were fed nothing but rice. Their physical endurance could endure. The body is an incredible machine. It adapts. It really does. So you'd be surprised, what the body can handle in extreme circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
But this is fascinating. And like I said, at the end of the day, you feel good. I mean, no one can take that away from you.
Right. And that's what they, keep saying. People come after them. Oh, this is crazy. You're eating too much red meat. You're going to have a heart attack and die and blah, blah, blah. And say, well, it's been 20 years and I'm healthier than I've ever been. So, and like the issue, and I don't know what your familiarity is, and being in the nutrition world, I'm sure you are familiar with the studies that came out and when they first did the advice to not eat red meat because it would cause heart attacks, and that whole push for the, low fat diet craze and all that's been going on for the last, 30, 40, 50 years. And yet what's the research coming out now, even a lot of it's anecdotal, just from people's experience. It doesn't, and then there's some medical as well, but I'm not as familiar with that side of it just because I'm new to this whole carnivore way of eating and this whole community. But, if red meat was going to kill you, like these carnivores basically are only eating beef, a majority of them, and in large amounts. Like
there's caution in any kind of extreme, and caution when it comes to any kind of story like that. Because, for example, when I was at Yale University for the Global Health and Innovation Conference, this guy was 94 something, and he was like, I smoke like a chimney. He was like, it must be good for you. And I'm like, no, established. Well, that's not the case. But like I said, when it comes to the body, it adapts and the result. Like there was a reported case of a guy who ate a McDonald's burger every day, I believe it was, and his cholesterol levels were normal. Again, you have cases like that as possible, yeah. I mean, there's certain patients you'll see they should not survive, but they do. And then the patients that are not supposed to die suddenly just die for the simplest things. So when it comes to things like that, it's hard to predict. But I was going to mention, when it comes to the studies have evolved so much, and there was also a lot of really bad signs at certain points. I mean, even they demonized eggs when we were younger, where they're like, do not eat
Right.
the egg yolk. And now it turns out the egg yolk doesn't actually affect cholesterol as people thought. And then, for example,
Right.
they were talking about drinking alcohol in moderation. The latest study coming out saying that no alcohol is good for you at all, basically. So they're even changing the recommendation from moderation to none. And then, for example, you're talking about carcinogenic properties and certain compounds. Again, like I said, the research is evolving, and the key thing here is people have to understand what works for them. What can they do sustainably? For example, if you're doing a really extreme diet and it's unnatural to you, you do not sustain it for a period of time, and then you swing back to completely unhealthy eating, that's not the right way for that person. But if they find a way that you can keep it and you're staying consistent over a period of time, that's a win.
Yeah. Sustainability, definitely. And a lot of people that I've seen, in the community have said all their cravings for other things eventually went away. They didn't want anything else. If they thought, if they had a choice, let me go eat a salad or let me eat a ribeye, they'd be like, ribeye. Like, they just, nothing appealed to them anymore. They used, this one lady was like, nut butters. Like, she was a peanut butter junkie. And now she's just like, So I guess your palate changes as you eliminate things for a period of time. And,
But remember earlier I cautioned about eating with your feelings, and because I even had this one lady met a long time ago. She was talking about how she would constantly eat based upon her cravings and stuff like that, and she would constantly crave potato chips, constantly crave all very unhealthy foods for the most part. But also, when you dig a little deeper, you find out she was very emotionally unwell, and she was eating her stress. So when it comes to those type of feelings and stuff, you have to be very cautious. Now, let's say your health markers are markedly improving, so you're actually getting the blood panels done, and then the doctors are saying, hey, your inflammatory processes are going down. Hey, you're losing weight. Hey, your blood pressure is improved. Hey, your blood sugars are getting under control. That's a win. Now, if you're feeling great, but then all that stuff is going out of whack, then we got to pause for a second and say, hey, what are we doing here? Does that make sense?
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people keep looking for validation to confirm things that they're feeling. I mean, if you're feeling good and you're actually having sustained growth and improvement, who cares really what other people's opinions are?
Yeah. I would say, losing 50 pounds and 6 inches and, off my midsection and my joint pain going away and even my skin clearing up. Because I kept breaking out all along my neck and jawline and on my nose and the top of my head. And, that's gone away drastically. And it only flares up if I'm like, I want some cheese today. Then I'll get that stuffy nose and then I'll boop, 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 have a little breakout or whatever.
Well, there could also be other complicating factors involved in that, in terms of different hormone cycles and such. I mean, when it comes to things like this, you might find that, for example, maybe a couple of months from now, a totally different diet best suits you. But I'm amazed in the sense that it makes me happy for you, brother, that you are feeling better. And that in itself is just, I mean, I've seen your progress, and to see you be able to close your hand, to me, I don't even care what's happening other than I'm happy for you.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. It's still a little tight. There's some scar tissue still kind of holding on. I can't get it all the way closed, but the difference is outstanding.
Yeah, because the main thing, I don't know if you recognize this about me over the years, I just like to listen and learn and absorb. I don't really have any particular judgment on any particular diet. People do different things that work for them. Some vegetarian people claim that they're feeling much better, and I've seen a market improvement in them. or some people that are vegan as well. That's changed their complete lives. But hey, as long as you're getting healthier, and then again, the key thing is not just only to get healthier, but not to create substantial harm in the world, right? So if you go around saying, "Oh, I feel better after slapping 42 people," probably not a good thing. So,
Say that again. I missed the last part of what you said.
oh, I said if some people say, "Oh, I feel good after slapping 42 people," 42
Oh,
people,
right.
I'm saying that's not a good thing. Now you're hurting a bunch of people. That's an issue.
Might be good for you, but not anyone else. Yeah.
Well, even then, I would doubt that it was good for their hand. But
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, I've had days at work where that might sound appealing.
Yeah. Well, that's where the test of patience comes in, right?
Precisely.
The main
yeah.
thing is I wish more people could have differing opinions and talk civilly. For example,
Right.
how you were talking about how some of the vegans come into the chat of the carnivore people just to antagonize them. What
Right.
purpose does that serve? What are you doing?
Yeah. And like you said, that's anywhere, people
Oh, even
in
in
all
our
kinds of
action
communities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to say there's people that hate Funko Pops. They're vehemently against it.
Yeah. Like when did we become so polarized? You don't have to hate something if you don't like it. You can
Well,
just
it's because
not like
egos. Well, people's egos are so sensitive. So basically, if you do not validate something that I like, I'm taking it as a personal offense because now you are not validating who I am. But a person that is more secure in themselves would not need to chase after everything they think is a slight against them. For example, a pot that's empty, you tap it, it makes the most noise. But when it's full, it tap, it goes bump, it makes a very little sound. So we need to be full within ourselves and content within ourselves. And that way we won't be as easily offended.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something similar, spiritually. And for me, somebody said to me one time, and it really helped me. They said, as a follower of Jesus, he said, when you follow Christ, you give up your right to be offended. If you really want to influence people and show them the love of God that you've experienced, and, they need to see in you that peace and that self-worth and, all that good stuff that comes from being secure in your identity in God. If you don't have that, you can't show them that, and if you're always offended by people who are attacking you for your faith or attacking what you believe in, and you let that upset you, rather than, loving them and having compassion on them, you're not going to get anywhere.
Well, I think people just need more love and compassion for each other. I mean, we're talking about brothers and sisters, husbands and wives. I mean, there's so many different examples that you can just give. I mean, I remember my friend a couple of months ago, his wife was basically criticizing one of his favorite authors, but he took that deeply to heart because she didn't recognize it. And then when he was talking to me privately, he said, "That's one of my favorite authors," and my wife was totally pooping all over this guy. And he was like, "She doesn't realize how she makes me feel." And then he ended up drinking his feelings away that night. And that's another problem with us men, is because the way we're conditioned, we don't talk about how we feel. I mean, even the fact I say, "I love you, my brother," that's really shocking to a lot of people. So we just need to get more love in the world and share it with each other.
Yeah. I don't know where the fact that men can't be emotional beings comes from, but it's not rooted in reality.
No, but it got beaten out of us because it was perceived as weak. So basically, any kind of weakness men would try to hide because we had. So with men, there's always a low level threat of violence. So that's why, for example, as men, we walk into a room, we're not going to just speak and say anything crazy because we know another guy's going to act on it. We're going to have to go outside and do something about it if we start pushing that boundary. So understanding that, you also try to minimize the markers of weakness. And that was always one of the things that was perceived weak, which is it actually weak? No, but I'm saying it's perceived weak. So that's something we have to train into the next generation of men to allow them to express that, but also allow them to truly be men also. Because now we don't want to all of a sudden demonize being a man, because we are who we are and how we've been created.
Right.
So it's about a matter of harnessing our nature.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yep.
sorry, I should complete this, and harnessing our nature to the maximal benefit of society and others.
Yeah. And being secure in our own identity and not thinking everyone else has to think and act and look and be the same.
Yeah. I mean, if we were all meant to be the same, do you think that, I mean, we would be that way, wouldn't we? Because if God wanted to create us all exactly the same, we would have been that way. The test is for us to
Yep.
get over our own egos and work with one another.
Exactly. Yeah. My goal, my desire is to be a servant of everyone around me. That's what I want to be.
You're a great man, brother. I've seen your love throughout the years, and I am grateful for you.
Well, thank you. I love you too. And I'm proud of who you are and all the good things you're doing in this world as well.
Thank you, brother. Well, we should do this again. This was fun. And then I think we just have some more combos and people can chime in.
Sounds good.
All right. Adios, Superman.
Hasta luego. Up, up, and away.
Bye.
Bye.